It is inaccurate to compare Theravada and Mahayana, as Mahayana was later emerged from Sarvastivada Buddhism. So, firstly, the major sects of Buddhism can be divided into Theravada, meaning the doctrine of the senior monks, and Sarvastivada, meaning the theory of all exist. Now the commonalities between the two sects. Both of these sects of Buddhist teaching and tradition believe in the notion of the cycle of rebirth from one life or one reality to the next. That's called samsara, literally, the existence of a being from birth to death. Now your goal should be to realize that all is taught to escape from the dukkha, suffering, sorrow that's truly present in this samsara, and eventually obtain nibbana, Sanskrit, nirvana. Nibbana means extinguishment. The differences between the two sects. In Theravada Buddhism, it is much closer to the original practices or teachings that we see with Buddha. It is very personal journey and also emphasizes to help others by preaching the Dhamma to the laypeople. As for the individuals who truly seek for liberation, they emphasize in practicing meditation, perhaps with some help from teachers, realizing the impermanence, the dukkha, recognizing non-self nature, and eventually, either in this life or in future lives, achieve nibbana. Now Sarvastivada Buddhism needs a bit of intro. Sarvastivadins argued that all dharmas exist in the past, present and future, the three times. Hence they invented thousands of imaginary Buddha idols and celestial deities, to be existing in the three times. Later Sarvastivada got split into many belief systems, of which recent Mahayana, meaning the great vehicle, is the only surviving school, based on Sarvastivadin doctrines and bears almost the same beliefs and traditions. The earliest systematic and most complete collection of early Buddhist sacred text Tipitaka is written in Pali language that was spoken by Buddha himself, and followed by the Theravadins. Whereas Sarvastivadin sacred texts are later written in Sanskrit language that has been used by Vedic Brahmanism. Now let's see what's practiced in Mahayana Buddhism. It actually got divided into various practices due to either diverseness or inconsistency of the doctrinal beliefs. But the general idea is that you might have help as you try to achieve nirvana. Just like the general idea of samsara and goal of nirvana in the two major sects. Someone who achieves nirvana is known as an arahant, so you could see Theravada Buddhism as, hey, try to go on this personal journey to become an arahant, to achieve nirvana. But in Mahayana Buddhism, the pursuit is not necessarily to get to nirvana as quickly as possible. It's because to help others try to achieve that same state. So the real goal is to suspend one's own nirvana and be a bodhisattva. Something seems very weird in tension that Buddha wasn't supposed to teach his disciples. Now the word bodhisattva is seen in both traditions of Theravada and Mahayana. Theravada's only authentic notion of bodhisattva is, it is Gautama Buddha's pre-birth state who didn't yet achieve nibbana but was trying to achieving something like it. He actually wanted to be immortal. But, finally what he found out was the impermanent nature of existence, that nothing can be permanent, and escape from existence is the only way to get out of samsara, which is rather full of uncertainty and dukkha. And it took him a very very long and complicated journey of life after life to realize the truth, because he didn't have anyone else's help or guidance. But now we got his teachings, he made it easier for us to attain nibbana. Back to Mahayana, the rest of sentient beings eventually achieve nirvana, and if you aren't one of the bodhisattvas, you have that help not only from bodhisattvas, but there's a fairly large grouping of celestial beings that are there to help. Focus your meditation and your energy. There are two traditions in Buddhism, the original Pali tradition and a later Sanskrit tradition. The Buddha originally taught in Pali, some say Magadhi Prakrit, which was the language of the masses of his time. From this tradition there were 18 different schools that emerged, and some of the major ones were Sarvastivada, Dharmaguptaka, Mahasanghika and Theravada. The Buddhism surviving in Sri Lanka and Burma are from the old Theravada school of the Pali tradition. Theravada means, way of the elders. Around 3 to 4 centuries after the Buddha, the Sanskrit tradition started gaining traction due to the influence of scholars like Nagarjuna, Aryadeva, Bhava Viveka, Buddhapalita, Chandrakirti and others. The perfection of wisdom scriptures were the main source of the scriptures for them. This Sanskrit tradition is the Mahayana, the one that arose from Nagarjuna's lineage is more precisely called the Madhyamika. Some say the Mahayana stemmed out of Mahasanghika, but that is not so certain. Hinayana is a slightly derogatory term some Mahayana scholars use to differentiate their school from the other older schools. The spiritually correct term in my understanding would be Shravakayana. Mahayana can be translated as the great liberation vehicle, as it is concerned with the liberation of all sentient beings. While the Shravakayana is the individual liberation vehicle, as it is concerned primarily with liberation for oneself. However, none of the teachings of the Buddha are greater or lesser than the other, so Hinayana is not the correct term to use for the individual vehicle. Theravada, being the most common individual vehicle school existing today, has become synonymous with the teachings of that vehicle.